Hi, and welcome to Supermom School. I'm so excited to be back with you today. It is my pleasure and to invite you to this call where we are talking with a friend of mine, Wanda Gaines. Wanda is a certified covenant coach that I have come to know and enjoy and just really appreciate your story, Wanda, of all the things that you have done to really serve and love your family as well as the people around you, building community. So thank you so much for being on the show today and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I'm so glad to talk to you. We haven't spent a lot of time together, but I tell you, you have such an incredible story of what God's done in your life and how you've taken sort of the circumstances that he's given you and not only excelled in your own parenting journey, but also helping the lives of others. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and your family to kind of get us started? Tell us where you're coming from.
Sure. Okay. I will start with letting you guys know that I have been married for 36 years now. We just had our anniversary. I've been saying almost for the last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So 36 years now, and we have two beautiful daughters. One just turned 29 and the other is 31. Our youngest daughter is disabled. And from the time she was born, it's been quite a journey. When she was born, we were at 3 hospitals the night she was born. My husband and I both claimed to be Christians. At the time we had both our kids, but we had never actually prayed together. In church and Bible studies, yes, things like that. But at home together, no. And from that moment, that night, when we wound up at 3 different hospitals and I remained at the second one while Brittany went on to a third, we found ourselves praying together, and it's been like that every day since. So
Wow.
we've never missed a day praying together and putting our family and our life in the hands of the Lord. And it's been a journey that we did not anticipate. It was like entering a foreign world to us. We had never been exposed to the things that we would now learn about on our journey in life.
Yeah.
And I'm just thankful that God put me together with my husband, because we both are such advocates, and we get in there and turn the stones and make sure we find out as much as we can for us, for our kids, for the special circumstances. And that's what we've done all the way, and we're still doing it. And
I guess so.
Yeah.
What a journey. Did you know that she was going to be disabled before she was born?
At about 24 weeks, I started having some issues with my pregnancy. And so I'm not sure we knew. There were some intense things that took place while I was in the hospital. When I was in the hospital at 24 weeks, I had an encounter with what I say was an angel that nobody saw but myself, and asked me about believing in a higher power. And if you do believe in a higher power, now all you can do is pray about it. Because they told me that I was going to have her that night and she probably wouldn't make it.
Oh,
And
wow.
but then they wound up sending me home. And so I went till 31 weeks and had her at 31 weeks. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, and the listeners, a little bit about what did you discover were the difficulties? And early on, when you first started trying to figure out how to care for her, what things did you find that worked and what didn't work? Obviously, the prayer piece was central at the beginning. What else helped and what really didn't? And can you tell us a little bit about that time of the journey?
So, at the beginning of what you just said, you said something about explaining what was difficult.
Oh, yeah.
And when you first said that, I reflected back to when she was still in the hospital after she was born. And I had quit my paralegal job to be home with my first daughter and started doing daycare. And so when I started having difficulties in my pregnancy with my second daughter, Brittany, I quit the daycare so that I could be on bed rest till I had her and things like that. So now when she was born, I went home from the hospital finally, and she was at the hospital for, I think it was close to 7 weeks, right?
Wow. Yeah.
But I remember when they were doing all these tests and everything, and I remember being home, and one of the most difficult moments that I ever had in my life was being in the kitchen and getting a phone call, and I was told over the phone that my daughter had brain damage.
Oh,
And when I think back on that, it brings back all these feelings.
yeah.
It really does. But I remember standing there, my husband was at work. And of course, I had no kids at this time except for my oldest daughter because I had quit the daycare.
Right.
And I couldn't even stand up. I had to like fall over the counter and hold myself up on the counter. Because to me, having brain damage, what did that mean? I don't understand that, And so that was the beginning of the journey. And fast forward, she's physically affected with cerebral palsy, but and let me say for your listeners, Brittany is so much into wanting to help other people in their lives. So nobody has to worry about me sharing the details that I share because she's all about it. I have her permission. I totally respect her feelings. And so that's really important to me.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. I do think that that's important, that we respect other people's privacy. So,
Yeah.
And thank her for letting, we really appreciate you, her willingness to share her story this way. So,
yeah. And so she gets very excited about being able to help others with her story. And so, she is affected physically, mentally, she's fine. But of course, she's had a lot of frustration in her life that she's had to deal with because she's visually impaired. She drives a motor chair with her head. She has a speech impairment. So if you know her, you can understand her. She can say, maybe at the most 3 or 4 words at a time. So she has to do a lot of thought process before she says something. If she's trying to get, a thought across to us, it's like, okay, what words am I going to use that they'll understand in a matter of 3 words or 4 words,
right.
Because she has apraxia. And so it's hard for her to get a deep breath. And we don't even realize it, that when we talk, we can say 2 or 3 sentences without even gasping for air. And for her, it's not that way. So, so she has a vision impairment, a speech impairment, and then her hands, her fine motor skills, she is unable to feed herself and do things that we do with our hands, So we have to assist her in that way. She needs a 24/7 assistant, she uses the restroom on her own, but we have to help get her on and strap her in. She has to be strapped in so she doesn't fall off and things like that. So it's quite different than what we thought life was going to be like.
Right. I guess so.
Yeah. So, but I started early on going to early intervention programs here in our county. And I took advantage of as much as I could. And so I went to all the classes, started meeting moms, mingling with other people who had kids with special needs and things like that. And I just started realizing this is where God wanted us to be. And I really hung my hat on Isaiah 55:8-9, where God's ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts. But, we are so blessed to have lived the life that we have. We've been able to help so many people. And Brittany's story, she's so special. We just love her so much. And it's truly a blessing, the whole thing. I mean, it's just.
Well, that's the beauty of networking too, right? When you go out and you start looking for resources yourself and you build those relationships, it also enables you to be able to serve them with things that you're learning too, isn't it? So it's that community support is so critical. It really is. Yeah. So the praying helped, the community support helped. Is there anything at the beginning that really didn't work, like you found frustrating, as far as like, we tried these things? Or I'm just thinking about listeners out there that might be in this situation. Is there any bad advice that's common out there that you know of?
Well, I'm not gonna lie, we did go through some hard times, and that would be, I'm gonna be totally truthfully honest here.
Yeah, do it.
That would be with Brittany going through the public school system. It
Okay.
was quite difficult, and especially being so physically disabled but mentally okay. And so
Mhm.
people would treat her like she didn't she she couldn't think for herself, or she couldn't,
Okay.
and that made it difficult. There were things like, I don't know if this will help you or not with what you asked me, but I'll just share whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, starting from way back in kindergarten, things like she couldn't go to the same school as my oldest daughter. Why? Why?
Huh.
Why can't my kids grow up in the same school? And so they claimed that it was better for the orthopedically impaired, where they wanted to send Brittany down the hill from where we lived. And of course, my husband and I, being so new to all this, we went, oh, well, we want her to have the best. So I guess this is the best thing to do. So
Sure.
we raised our kids at two different schools. But then there were things like in kindergarten where I would go and I would help out because on the playground and stuff, I'd show up at recess and take her down the slide with the kids. Because if I didn't show up, they weren't allowed to like take her out of her chair and stuff like that, as little as she was. And
Okay.
so I'd go and show up so she could play with the kids, stuff like that. They had a concert for all the parents in kindergarten, and it was going to take place on a Saturday. And so I was at the school helping put together the play that the kids were doing and the whole bit. And I'll never forget, we showed up on Saturday, and I mean, let's think back. We're all adults now, but if you think back to kindergarten and you think back to that very first play that your mom and dad are going to come and see you do, and it's so exciting, right? And I'll
Right.
never forget that when we got there, she had an aide, what they called an assistant or an aide at school, right? But she wasn't allowed to take her out of her chair, which is why I would show up for recess so she could play with her friends and stuff. But I remember when we showed up on Saturday and they said, oh no, Brittany can't be in it. And I said, what? And they said, well, the aide, we don't hire the aide for Saturdays. So unless you're going to do it with her up on stage, she can't be in it. And I remember I almost started crying, and I thought, wait, this isn't okay. This isn't, wait, what do I do? And so I prayed about it and talked to my husband about it. And of course, I'm starting to go in tears because I know how excited my daughter was about
Right.
this. And I know it sounds so trivial, but it wasn't.
It
It was,
is the little things though, isn't it? When like
yeah.
it is the
And
little
it's
things
like,
that matter.
she was so excited when she went to bed the night before. On the way there, she was just beaming, like, I get to be a part of this, and this is going to be my first thing, and my parents are going to be so proud of me. And
Yeah.
so we prayed about it, and I went to the teacher, and I just basically said, this is not okay. It's not okay. And so it worked out. We got someone else involved, and because she didn't want mom doing it with her. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah.
And
Right. She
so,
wanted to present it to mom.
yeah,
She didn't want
and
you to be up there. Yeah.
yeah, and I think what crushed me as a mom back then was knowing that Brittany knew what happened, and
Mm.
it took down the excitement that she had. All of a sudden, she was heartbroken. Like, what? And
Yeah.
so when they found, we all pitched in and went into frantic mode trying to find someone who could intervene and help her out up on
Yeah.
stage. And it was outside.
Uh-oh. You're breaking up.
And they were
Hold
on
on.
the
Hold
stage
on,
on that
Wanda. You're
stage, and I'll
breaking
never
up.
forget. I didn't know all those parents at that school, it
Hold on
hurt
just a
hard. I
second.
thought,
Hold on, because you're breaking up really bad.
okay.
Um, I don't know where I'm kind of want to see if your picture comes back.
Yeah, so at any rate, that was kindergarten, and
Yeah.
some heartbreak there. It always seemed like it was the schools. I had a time when she was in third grade, and this was really hard. I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but at any rate,
I think
in
it's
third,
I mean, the real stories, like the real things that are going on that are getting in the way, that, yeah, that
okay, there we
definitely.
go. Well, this is something that you probably wouldn't have imagined, but at any rate, anyone who has special needs kids out there, at least in California, and I think even in all the other states, they have meetings where kids go to what they call here anyways, IEPs. And I think
Right.
it's like that everywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
So when Brittany was growing up in the elementary school, of course, when the kids would go on the field trips, and they'd go on 2 or 3 field trips a year,
Mhm.
we used to tell them, okay, we'll volunteer to go just in case they needed help, even though she had an aide. We were always concerned about them feeling overwhelmed or whatever. Perhaps we shouldn't have felt like that. I don't know. But at any rate, we had written into the IEP that she could ride, because she was so little, that she could ride the big bus with her friends, and the aide would sit next to her, and her friends could sit in the seats front and back of her, because she did have some really close friends when she was little going to school. And so I'll never forget this one day. It was third grade, and we showed up to go on a field trip, and we had her in her manual chair, not her motor chair, because the manual chair, we could pull it apart, the wheels off, and put it underneath the bus, right?
Oh, okay.
So I told the aide, I said, I will, you hold her in line with the kids. And there were like 3 or 4 buses that hold 90 something kids on each bus. And there were all these parent volunteers and everything at the school getting ready to go. And I'll never forget, we had been going at odds with the school system about educating her, because they weren't providing her what she needed to be educated like the other kids.
Mhm.
So fast forward, we've been going through this for 2 or 3 years, and now it's third grade, and we're going on this field trip. And it just felt like something felt weird about this, because she had been riding the big buses with the kids in kindergarten, first, second, third grade. It was in the IEP, right? And so I told the aide, I said, you hold her in line with the kids, and I will pull the wheels off the chair and put it all underneath the bus, and we'll wait till they start loading the buses. And she said, okay. So when I got done with the chair, I walked over to her and I said, if you need a break, I'll hold her up, I'll hold her up in line. And so when they started loading the buses, the kids there were like 4 buses. There were a lot of people. And so we got on the bus and we sat down, and everyone's on the bus. Everybody is on the darn bus.
Okay.
And the bus driver turns around and looks at Brittany and I. We're sitting like 5 rows back, and she had a little friend in the same seat as us. The 3 of us were in the same seat. And the bus driver said, you and your daughter need to get off the bus.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
And I said, exactly. And she said, because there's a special needs bus right here in front of this bus to take her to the field trip. And I said, no, you don't understand. She's always rode the big bus. It's in her IEP. And she said, I don't care. She needs to get off the bus. It's a safety problem. She needs to go on the special needs bus. And so that was a circumstance that was very difficult. And Brittany was, just to be
It's devastating.
my daughter here, everybody on the bus, the whole bus, you could hear a pin drop. All the parents and everybody were like, what is happening? You know what I mean? And so nonetheless, I said 2 or 3 times as nicely as I could, please call your supervisor, on the little speakers that they have on the bus, the little walkie-talkie thing. I said, please call your supervisor. If you call your supervisor, she should have it in the files. She should know, right? And that woman just stood firm. And so we wound up getting off the bus.
Hmm.
And I remember telling everybody, you know what, I'm going to go in to the front office because I was like ready to have it out with people.
I bet you were.
I was ready to have it out. And I told Brittany and the aide, I said, look, when I pulled the chair out from underneath the bus and I put it together, and I'm like slamming it together at this point because I'm ready to cry. Right. And so I looked at the aide and I said, I'm running up to the front office. And I said, you just get on that bus and you go with Brittany. I said, I will catch up with you guys later. Because I was just like, I can't believe they just did this to my daughter. Right. And so I ran inside, and I probably wasn't very nice to start with. I mean, I wasn't mean, but it was like, look, I need your attention, and I need
that mama bear.
Yeah. What just happened is not okay. And so at any rate, we went rounds a little bit, and then they wound up calling transportation, and they gave me the phone, and I called transportation, and they didn't want to let me talk to the supervisor. And so my words were, okay, fine, you know what, my next call is to the media. And I said, so if you don't want to put your supervisor on the phone. So sure enough, they put the supervisor on the phone, and she said, she said, fine, you know what, they'll meet your daughter and she could ride home on the bus with everybody, but we're going to have to talk about this later on, and blah, 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 blah. So I go running out thinking, okay, at least she gets to go home with all the kids on the bus. I'll go to Sacramento and meet all them now. So I go running. I was in there for like 30 minutes. I go running out of the administrative building, and all of a sudden there's these 4 big buses with all the parents standing outside. And I'm like, and when I first saw them, I'm like, oh, and I go, what are you guys all doing here? Oh my gosh, no. Why did you guys wait for us? And they all looked at me and they said, we're not leaving without your daughter.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, so that was quite something.
Wow, that must have felt really good.
It did. It felt awesome. Yeah, we went through some times that were just really, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm whining about things, but these are some of the things she went through.
Well, I think one of the things that I've heard from other special needs parents is that, and you can tell me if this is similar for you, that you get tired of feeling like you're having to advocate for every little thing. And at the same time, it is every little thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Every little thing. And it doesn't end, does it? Like not for the rest of her life, it doesn't end.
No, I'm still learning. And I think that there's a lot of people who mean well, and but they're not educated in it. So they form their own opinions, or they form their own way of doing things, and it's not always necessarily the right way. And so you get some tension there, because the people who are trained in doing these things, sometimes they can't handle it all. And a lot of times they don't have the support of the county or the school district, because of funding or this or that. And I will say, coming from a parent's point of view, there's one thing that I've learned. Before I had my daughter, I used to always think, not always think, but I had a thought that went through my head at one point in my life that, and I'm embarrassed to say this, that special needs kids might take away from the general education kids. But in what I've learned, it is exactly the opposite. And that's what I learned as I went through the system, because the funds, whether it be federally speaking or whether it be state speaking, they weren't being spent on what my daughter was supposed to be receiving to get her education. And so those funds were going somewhere, but they weren't going to what my daughter needed to be educated. And so
spread out across a lot of other areas, I would guess.
And so I think that thought that I had in my head before I ever had my daughter, I think a lot of people just might think like that. But it's not true. It's, in my mind anyways, and in my experience, I can tell you right here in California, it is the opposite.
Well, and don't you think that's a little bit true in a lot of areas where it's like when we're focused on what we're not getting, it's easy to look out and say, well, it's because that person who needs more attention is taking away from what I need, or taking away finance from what I need, or something like that. And we aren't really focused. When we're focused on ourselves, we don't really focus on how that other person or what their needs are might actually just be a gift to us, or just might be exactly what I need. It could apply to anything in life, couldn't it? Like that thought. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
As time went on, more specifically junior high and then high school, what I found, it started in junior high, when they would switch classes and go to different classes.
Right.
They wouldn't have book, like when the kids would be reading silent reading in class, instead of her having the accommodations to read, they would just take her outside and go push her around the school, because they didn't have what she needed to be educated, and I didn't catch on to this for a while. When she went into junior high, parents don't volunteer like they did in elementary school. Right. And so I would go to the events and things, but I wasn't there for breaks or classes or,
Sure.
And so I didn't realize this was going on until a lot of parents started telling me, how come your daughter's always walking around the school with the aide, And so I started checking in, and that's when we first started learning that when they weren't accommodating her needs for learning, they would just take her outside and go take a break, go walk around the school, whatever. And then in high school, it was still the same. And we started working with the high school district a year before she started high school. We said, we need to start figuring this out now, because junior high was a mess, right? We need to make sure this works, And so we started working with them a year before, and we would meet with them during the summer, which the teachers didn't like, but it was like, no, we're not doing this again. Our daughter is going to be educated. We're going to make sure the needs are met, and da, da, da. And, and I mean, a lot of kids don't get educated to the extent that their parents want. But I just wanted my daughter to have the tools to be educated, So at any rate, when we just went like this with the high school system for the first 3 years. And when she started junior high, we had some meetings in the summer, and everything was going to be great and this and that. And then the first couple of weeks of school, she would come home in tears. She had some friends who would text me and say they're walking her around the school. They'd text me, from class and stuff like that. And so we finally let the school know. I think it was the third week, we're pulling her out completely. And we're like, why are we doing this? We prayed about it. It was really hard because neither one of us ever went to private schools. Neither one of us, my husband and I, had ever been homeschooled. Homeschooling was terrifying to me. And especially with my daughter, who had such significant needs for reading, for writing, for, what I mean? And so I started looking into things. I started Googling things before we pulled her out of the high school. Like a couple of weeks before, I was just like, oh my gosh, we have got to do something different. This is just crazy. We're wasting time here. We are wasting valuable time on her learning and educating, and all her peers are moving forward, So I found it was called, I think they changed their name now, but it was back east, and it was called Hadley School for the Blind. And they were fabulous. They sent her all the materials here, and we started over in her junior year. We started over, went back to her freshman year and moved forward. She was supposed to graduate in 2011, and she actually wound up graduating in 2015. And she graduated with nearly a 4.0, just shy of a 4.0.
That's amazing.
Our whole community, I think what was kind of crazy about it is that we've always been such advocates, not just for Brittany, but for the other special ed kids too. My husband and I have always served on committees and boards, and hosted events for the kids and things like that. We built a wheelchair accessible home, and we made the backyard to where we could have disabled kids here, and a lift for the pool and stuff like that. So we've always kept in mind that we want to serve in that way. And so it was interesting because when she graduated, I don't think I understood the people that were like following her story because our friends who live next door to us have a barn, a rather large barn, and it's very nice. And they said, let's have a graduation party for her. And we said, okay. And so we started the process of planning a graduation party. And next thing I know, the party store in town contacts me and wants to donate a stage. And I'm like, what? You want to donate a stage?
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to tell them we don't want your stage. What do I need your stage for? So I'm like, oh, okay.
How many people were you picturing? Like at first, were you thinking?
Maybe 40, 50 people,
okay.
Family and friends in the neighborhoods type thing. And so then when she said the stage, I didn't, she was so sweet. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do at the stage? Okay, what does that mean? We have to like get a band or something, or a DJ, or, oh my gosh, okay, this is getting crazy. This is getting crazy, right? The next thing you know, the radio stations are calling me. The news stations are calling me.
Oh, wow.
It just got crazy. And people in our community showed up that I didn't even know. They were calling, asking if they could come. And we had like, I think it was like 130 people that showed up for that. And there's a video on YouTube. I think it's called A Special Graduation for Brittany. And it's the full graduation. Someone filmed it. It's the full graduation, and it is so unbelievably awesome. People sent videos. The dean of the school that we had her go through back east, she sent a video for the event. What wound up being just a party back up. What wound up being planned as just a party turned into a graduation ceremony. And so what happened was that stage that I told you the party store donated, that was one section of the stage that they use at the high schools, right? And so when so what the day that we were setting up, I'll never forget, this radio station shows up and wants to interview Brittany. And of course I have to be there with her, because if they can't understand her, I need to be advocating.
Like translate.
Yeah. And so her and I are outside the barn and they're totally interviewing. And next thing you know, Tom, who's our neighbor who owns the barn, he comes flying outside in the middle of this radio station interview. And he goes, excuse me. He goes, could you please stop for just a minute? I'm really sorry. And I'm like, what? And so I go running in the barn to see what he's all stressed out about. And he goes, did you see this stage? What do you want us to do with this? And so we had to arrange it to where it fit in the barn and we could still have all these dinner tables and this and that. And then we had to have a ramp, right? And so the ramp, just for Brittany to get up on the stage, it had to be like, oh my gosh, I think it was 14 feet long or something, right? It was like 4 feet wide with the railings, and it was like 14 feet long. And I am not kidding you, when she went in that barn, her thought process went to, I'm going to go across that stage and get my diploma. Are you kidding me? And so she went, and she has a visual impairment. So it's like the first time she's considered legally blind, so the first time that she goes somewhere, I have to like verbally cue her on everything because she can't see depth.
Like where she's going. And
yeah. So like if a street and a curb are the same colors, she can't see the drop off.
She can't tell.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to go, hey, move over, get to the right. There's a drop off here, or something like that. And so when she went in that barn, oh my dear Lord, she went flying up that ramp, and they hadn't connected the actual stage to the ramp yet. And there was about that much of a gap, right? And
like 6 inches of,
and I'm like,
oh my goodness.
Oh my God. I flew in and I'm like, stop, stop, right? And she was just like, no, I'm not stopping for nothing. And so Tom ran over and he goes, Mom, I'll handle this. But she was
She was
just so
excited.
excited because she never
Oh,
did do the actual graduation with all her friends. And then this wound up being a graduation for one person, and it was amazing. We had the lady, when I was on bed rest, when I was pregnant with Brittany, she was a wonderful woman, a Christian woman. She prayed for us. She came to my house every day till the day I had the baby, and she would monitor me. She flew out from Boston to be
oh
here, and
wow.
I
What a
had only,
celebration.
oh my gosh, I had only seen her one other time, from the time that Brittany was born. And so now Brittany was what? She was 22, 23, something like that, right? And so she came out to speak at it. The sheriff of our county spoke at it. I mean, we had people sending in videos. The dean of the school that we had her enrolled at in
Right.
Virginia, she sent a video. Her teachers sent videos,
Oh my
because
goodness.
yeah, it was just amazing. It was
What a
absolutely amazing.
celebration.
And so
Wow. Well, I
it's
want
really,
to, because I know we're going to have to go soon, but I want to make sure, I want to jump over like, it's a huge celebration, all that you've done as a parent, and not only for her, but for the other kids in your community and really kids all over the place. I know her story has inspired so many people, and not only other kids with the same issues, but other parents, and like giving them hope that advocating for their kid really can, in meaningful ways, can bring about good results, but I also know that uh, this is not something that goes away for you. And so I want to take a little bit of time to talk about, you've been working on putting something together for parents as they get older, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So can you just talk a little bit um, about that piece, and a little bit about your thought process about why you did that, and what you're doing now to help people?
Okay, sure. Yeah, as some people I'm sure can relate that live a life of special needs, I think parents often go to bed at night and you just can't sleep. You have anxiety. Perhaps I even had depression at times where I would get scared and I would think, what is going to happen if
Mm.
something happened to my husband and I? What will happen to Brittany? How will she live her life? Her older sister, has to make a life for herself too. And she has only the one sibling. What is going to happen?
Yeah.
And so I met you through Hannah Keeley too, but I
Right.
met Hannah Keeley, and she really coached me through that. And I was able to understand much more how God is protecting us from that. And
Mhm.
after Hannah coaching me, and I don't even know how to explain it. I don't, it's all God. It was the Holy Spirit working within me that provided total peace.
Mm.
Somehow, some way, I just knew that no matter what, I don't have to worry. God has my back. If something
Wow.
happens to Bill and I, he's got it all figured out and I
That's
don't have
so
to
good.
worry. But with that being said, I decided, okay, what am I going to do to make sure that my oldest daughter knows what's going on with Brittany every day in her life? Like, okay, if Bill and I were not here right now and someone had to step in, what meds does she have to take? Who prescribes those meds? My daughter has, gosh, I can't begin to tell you how many doctors, right? Who prescribes those meds? Where does her equipment come from? She has a
Right.
lift that goes from her bedroom to her bathroom. It breaks down sometimes. Who repairs that? Is there funding for it? She has her wheelchair van. Okay, so we paid for the wheelchair van. There's certain things that they will fund for Brittany. Who do you call if something breaks down on that? Things like that. What will they fund? What will they not fund? So there's just a whole lot of stuff. And so I created a program where I can help other families who have had the same anxiety that I have gone
Right.
through and help them embrace peace and
Mhm.
happiness. Because really, what's so cool about this is that I spent a lot of years where every single day of my life, that affected me.
Yeah.
I'd worry. I couldn't let it go. And so now, instead of worrying and that affecting the great times that I should be having with Brittany, right?
Yeah.
Instead of worrying, now I know God has it all figured out, and I've got tools to help other people, and they don't have to stay awake at night anymore. They
I
don't have to
love
worry.
that. Oh my
Instead of
goodness.
worrying and losing time with your loved ones because you're worrying and fearful, and that's not from God.
Right.
You're embracing happiness and peace. I'm getting goosebumps all over right now
It's
as I'm
so
talking about
good though. And I love your combination of how do we step into that peace and really experience that in our spirit, but also recognize that there are tools and things that we can pull together and be wise. Like, let's not be naive and think no emergency could ever happen,
Yeah.
and building some of those, like being wise in that area, but also step like that mindset that you talk about where I can truly step into believing that
Yeah.
this is something that's possible to release to Jesus. So if
Yes.
somebody wanted to uh, talk to you or get in touch with you about how they could to be a part of the program that you created, what would they need to do in order to get in touch with you?
The best way probably right now for the viewers would be to go to my website, which
Okay.
is wandagainescoaching.com.
Okay. And we'll put
And
that in the show notes in the link. Yep.
uh-huh. And I want to add to that though,
Yeah.
is that the piece that was just so awesome is that not only did Bill or I have anxiety about that, our family members had anxiety about that, our extended
Oh,
family members.
sure.
And guess what? Brittany, she is so relieved. She's like, wow,
Mhm.
Mom put together this whole thing to where I know I don't have to worry, and so she's relieved too.
Yeah.
It affected her very much so. What's going to happen to me? My mom and dad are the only ones that can help me right now,
Right.
so
That's
but
so
yeah,
beautiful. I love that. And you're right. That idea of what happens if you're not there yeah, it makes total sense why that would be something that would bother her, bother the family around. Like, who is this responsibility going to fall on? I don't feel qualified. That kind of
yeah.
feeling, that makes so much sense. And
There is no agency. I don't care where you're at. There is no agency. Even my daughter has a caseworker, and all the other kids who have special needs have caseworkers, right?
sure.
I am positive that the parents out there cannot say that if something happened to them, all the files that they have on hand would help someone be able to pick up the pieces
And do
and
something with it.
keep moving forward with their child if something happened to
Yeah.
them.
Right.
This is what that does. So
That
yeah.
is amazing. Thank you so much for creating that resource for people. And I'm so excited. I hope that, like, I don't think anything happens by accident. And so I am excited if you're a listener and you are listening to Wanda, I just encourage you to get in touch with her. She's a wonderful coach. She'll help coach you through toward whatever kind of anxiety that you're having around this. And the special needs that maybe your child is having, and how to be prepared and how to do it from a peaceful perspective. Wanda, thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you so much for taking your time with us. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank
Really,
you. I
you're
really
very
appreciate
welcome.
you having me. It's been fun, and I'll be talking to you again soon.
Yeah, awesome. Okay.